Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show. My name is Leon Jones, and this evening, this title of the video is going to be a question. And I'm doing it because we have a number of individuals out here who are very delusional when it comes to politics. They're very delusional when it comes to society in general. And they're criticizing this president. Now, there have been other presidents before this president, but it seems to me all the shots are coming to this president. So, the title of this video is, what would you do if you were president? Because many of us can sit back and critique what the president is doing all we want. But guess what? It's not going to help us because we're not president. Many of us don't even know how to run our own lives. Let me give you something that I saw yesterday. Shout out to Mr. Fantastic for putting this video up. And this is one reason why many of us don't understand what's going on. We're delusional. I was watching this show yesterday, and there was this black woman on this show. Tattoos, wasn't attractive at all, but said she was a political activist. Now, the only thing that I did agree with her about is this. She wouldn't date anybody who's a Trump supporter. Okay, that's fair. But she keeps saying, well, she kept on saying, well, and it was one of DJ Hemp's panels. She kept saying, I'm going against Trump supporters every day. I'm a political activist. Most of you black women don't even know anything about politics. All you're doing is you're just drinking a Kool-Aid as a white liberal. That's all you're doing. You're just regurgitating everything you see on CNN. She said she had a degree in criminal justice. That's fine. What are you doing with it? You see, this is also what society is not telling you either. You have a number of individuals who are going out here getting these degrees, and they're looked at as being someone who's a great savior. First of all, there's only one great savior, and that's God. A degree doesn't mean a damn thing unless you do something with it, particularly if you do something that you go to school for. And it seems to me that you have a number of women out here who do not know how to take criticism. See, this woman kept on mentioning body positivity, but she wouldn't date the guy for looking at her for looks. Well, correction, she wouldn't date the guy if he was a Trump supporter, but then if a guy called her ugly, she would be offended. See, one thing about this country that is very difficult, and particularly during this Trump era of presidency right now, is a number of individuals don't know how to handle real masculinity. Yes, Trump can be very brash. I'm brash at times when I have to be. The bottom line is, I'm just sick of us living in this society that the truth is not being told and individuals are overly offended. And the reason why they're overly offended is because it's almost like canceling somebody, it's to shut down the conversation. The bottom line is, when you don't have a conversation, particularly, let me stay on the undesirable with unrealistic expectations. This is like the mom with kids who won't date a man with kids. That's an undesirable situation, but you expect a person to come into your life thinking that you're desirable. Well, just like on that balloon popping show, this woman went on that show and then went on Hemp's panel because she had individuals going in her DMs criticizing her. Well, if you're ugly, you're ugly. A number of you women call men ugly all the time. everybody is not going to be pretty. Because see, if you were truly pretty, pretty women get, I hate to say, entitlement treatment. If you're ugly, particularly if you're a woman, all you're going to have is your education. But your education doesn't make you a good person. Same with the man. Man can have all the money in the world, still doesn't make him a good person. See, when we deal with America, we don't like dealing with truth. And I'm looking at this situation going on with Trump, with this military action. And you have a bunch of allies, and I'm looking at what's going on. They don't want to help them out, but yet they need us for something. And this is why the gas prices keep going up. And I also believe that this is a ploy when it comes to the midterms. Because there are a number of individuals out there who, and I'm looking at the mainstream media, and I'm looking at the podcast, saying that MAGA is dead. Well, it depends on which side you're on. First of all, a number of individuals don't even know what MAGA is. MAGA is not the Tea Party. In fact, the individuals who believe that MAGA is dead, from my humble opinion, never were MAGA to begin with. The bottom line is Trump still has a lot of his supporters. Now, of course, during his first term as president, guess what tripped Trump up? COVID. Now, Trump can't run again, but the Democrats are going to try to use this ploy to keep the Republicans from winning the midterms. See, the bottom line when it comes to president, what would a number of you do as president? I want to know. Many of you can't even handle your own job as an employee. Many of you don't even know how the government works, but you think you're some experts in politics. I'm not an expert in politics, but I know from dealing with it, working for public agencies and even private consultants, how to deal with the politics. And your real swamp that you must understand, it's not necessarily your elected officials, it's your non-elected bureaucrats. It is your appointed radical judges. Now, being a president is a difficult job. And one of the reasons why they don't like Trump, and this is my humble opinion, is particularly if you're a woman, you don't like masculinity. Well, I'm going to tell you something. Masculinity is always going to be here. I mean, I'm hearing rumblings that the new leader in Iran is sweet. That's just a rumor going around. But I will tell you something about Iran. That's male dominated. Now, do I believe it? I don't have any proof. So right now, I can't believe that. When it comes to the Middle East is run on a theocracy. Now, if you're not familiar on what a theocracy is, it's run by religion, a religious council. They're Muslim to the core. Now, the problem is, everybody's here down in Trump, but you look at Mondami. Biden allowed all these illegals to come in, and now a lot of what's going on is coming from the inside. Now you're putting them in power to run your cities, and they're bringing their culture right to the cities. Here in America, that's not American culture. Now, if I were to go over to China or the Middle East or Venezuela, I would have to get with their program, understand their culture. But you have a number of individuals who they don't really like this president. but yet they don't have any policies of their own. And it's not just the left, it's also the right. And the problem is you have a number of these individuals who've been sitting around like Bill Kristol, and then you have a number of, oh yeah, Lincoln Chafee. He used to be a senator from Rhode Island. You have all these guys. The late Harry Reid, Chucky Schumer, and all these individuals are doing. They're playing the race card, they're playing the gender card. But overall, many of us think we know what's going on in Iran and we have an opinion. The reason why I haven't touched on too much about it, because I do not know what's going on behind the scenes. And when I don't have concrete information, I will not broadcast it because I'm being just like CNN. I'm delivering fake news and disinformation. Bottom line is, many of us wouldn't even know what we would do if we were president. Why? Because many of us will never be president. Many of us will never be an owner of our own business. And if we were, with some of the lives that individuals have today, their businesses would fail. I'll give you an example. I watch some of these cooking shows, and you have a number of people who don't even have any restaurant skills. They think they can go out and open up a restaurant. Well, they never did market research, and many of them think because they can cook at home in the kitchen that they can bring in customers. Well, first of all, when it comes to a restaurant, it's location, location, location. Then you have to get the type of menu. Many of these individuals fail because they have a large menu. Their food isn't fresh, but they think they know what's going on because they have a restaurant. And the number of people who are in business should not be in business because they have no idea. Bet you they don't have marketing plans, business plans. But to be president, you have to run the whole country. Many of us can't even run our lives. Being president is a stressful job. If the economy goes south, it's on the president. Even though he might not even be in America, he could be overseas talking to leaders. He's out here trying to convince the world to get along for trade reasons, economics. Everybody's not going to like the president. But what would some of you do as president? Many of you don't know because you'll never be president. Many of you are coming up here on YouTube and Twitter acting as if you know anything about politics, and particularly in the Black community. I don't even know why Black people come out and speak about politics, because many Black people, they're dumbfounded. They have no idea what's going on in the government. In fact, most people before Trump became president never even got into politics. Even when Obama was president, you ask the average person, what are the three branches of government? They couldn't tell you. See, the president is a figurehead for the most part. The president has executive privileges through Congress. Now, a number of individuals right now think that there's a war going on. Well, it is not a war going on because Congress has to declare war, not the president. Now, it's a conflict. Now, if it gets past 60 days, then the president is going to have to go to Congress to declare war. Now, again, you have a lot going on because many individuals don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon, particularly Israel. Now, you have a number of individuals, too, who are anti-Semites. Now, I'm not knocking everybody who is in the Muslim religion, but a number of them over in that region hate America. They do. And they would like to do nothing more than to destroy America. Well, the way they're going to do it is, and it could happen, you have the Democrats. They keep letting them in. And see, individuals from the Mideast don't have to send an intercontinental ballistic missile here. They can come over here, mingle in the crowd, and they can do damage that way. See, the problem is when it comes to individuals out here, they really don't understand what it is to be responsible. You have individuals who can't even be mayors. You have this Tiffany character who was the mayor of Dalton, who's going down there trying to run as a Republican in Georgia. She's not going to win in Georgia. No way. Not with all those folks down there. Bottom line is, she couldn't take care of her own house in Dalton, Illinois. And Dalton, Illinois is a small city outside of Chicago. Jasmine Crockett, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Democrats were probably setting them up to run for president. Kamala Harris. Everybody's not groomed to be president. Now, of course, you have a number of individuals in Washington who don't like this president. Why? Because he's an outsider that came in and got elected to a position that none of them could win. Now you have Gavin Newsom. He wants to run for president in 2028. He's not going to win. You look at California. He's going to bring California values to the United States. And the problem is a lot of your information is coming from both coasts, where you have a lot of the urban population, but they're forgetting about the middle of the country. But for the most part, if you are an executive of something, you have to make decisions. You have to have a vision. Now, a number of individuals don't like Trump's vision because you're going to have a little pain. Like, okay, the gas prices are going up. I know here in Indianapolis, saw the Speedway, the Shell right off of Allison and 82nd, it's $3.89. Sometimes things are going to happen on a temporary basis. You have to make the adjustment. Leaders aren't perfect. Kim Jong-il, Castro, Maduro, they're dictators. And this president is trying to get rid of the dictators. He's trying to make it so, now I don't agree with it. I think we should, because of the environmentalists, we couldn't drill for our own oil. And some of our refineries are up to capacity. In fact, we haven't had a brand new refinery built in this country, I believe, since 1976. You have the environmentalists who don't want nuclear power. Nuclear power, I know they're going to look at Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island, and I believe they want to open 3 Mile Island back up again. I remember when I was 14 years old back in 1979 when they had an issue because I was living in Maryland then. And if you know where 3 Mile Island is, it's right off the Susquehanna River, just outside of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Well, Pennsylvania has 5 nuclear power plants. Well, nuclear power is clean. They use it over in France. And see, we have to generate new ways to create energy efficiency. You really want to go green, not going green by the green new scam out there. No, you got to go green by new types of energy. Not saying get rid of gas powered vehicles either. But see, this is something that a president has to think of. President has to think of a budget. I'm president. What bills would you veto if you were president? See, I know a lot of you individuals, if you were president, you'd be trying to put some dumb stuff in there, some feeling stuff. And that's what gets me about this country. People here in America live on lies. It's just like that black woman who was, now I agree with her again. She didn't want to date somebody who's a Trump supporter. Okay, that's a fair deal. But this body positivity, okay, you can't force somebody to like you because in their eyes, you're not attractive. Now, me on the other hand, I wouldn't date somebody who's a feminist. But I looked at that woman, she was a feminist. Whenever I hear any woman talk about hating men or misandrists out there, these individuals come from feminism. This is why a number of women don't like Trump, because a number of women want the power, but they don't want the responsibility with the power if something goes wrong. In fact, they are crying out about men not approaching them, but yet when men approach them, they call men creeps. Bottom line is this: we live in an ignorant society. Individuals are too offended. Bottom line is this president, he's very masculine. And that's what a lot of men want. That, be honest with you, that's why a number of men voted for him. Do you think if Kamala Harris were in power, how a number of women would be? Feminism, it would really go out of control. You would have a lot, particularly in the black community. Well, what does that have to do with being president? Because being president, you have to know how to govern. You have to understand that you're not going to satisfy everybody. It's not your job to satisfy everybody. And here is why. If you look at the election of 2024, did Trump satisfy everybody? No. He got most of the votes, but he still didn't satisfy everybody. And individuals who weren't satisfied, they can't take that they lost. That's the problem. And then you have some of the Republicans, Yan Coulter's out there, they were never on board anyway. Generally, when it comes to individuals who are hanging around Washington, they're fair weather fans. They're out there trying to get some clicks and likes. They're not telling the truth. These individuals could make it in their position and they want attention. So the internet comes on and everybody's trying to have a podcast. Everybody thinks they have an idea of what's going on here. No. And what's going on in around here is, yeah, there's oil over there. There's oil in Venezuela. And there's a little stretch that the president wants allies to help get it open so they can ship the oil. Because if these other countries don't help, they're going to be affected even worse, because at least up in Alaska, where the caribou are, there's still some reserves. Now, the problem is if you tap the reserves, it's only going to be temporary. See, if we could have built the pipeline, the Keystone pipeline, we could have had our own oil. If we had built that wall, we could have kept a lot of the illegals out. You see, all of this didn't happen when Biden was president. And you see what's happening. Trump is trying to correct everything that Biden left. So he hasn't even been in 2 years. But everybody is hating him but he's trying to correct another president's mistakes. Sometimes what somebody else leaves you, your replacement has got to find a way to make do and then correct it. It's like, I'm a project manager for a company. Now, when I got there, yeah, two people who were project managers that left me with a mess. Now, is it all corrected? No. And then I got a manager who doesn't know what he's doing half the time. So I'm trying to figure everything out. And it makes me look like I'm going wrong when I'm not, because I'm trying to correct people's mistakes. Well, this is the same thing as a president. Many individuals don't have any idea of what running something is. It's easy to go to work to get a paycheck, but yet you're complaining about what you're getting paid. But if a number of individuals were put in management positions, could they succeed? No. You have a number of people who want the title and the power to delegate. However, they do not want the responsibility. This is why everybody can't be president. You have individuals who are too emotional. Would you want to give them the key to the nuclear weapons? No. Would you trust them into vetoing something? No. Because you have a number of individuals that aren't equipped to have that kind of power, like Jasmine Crockett. Her stay is most likely, if she's going to be in any type of position, would be city council, mayor of a small town. Congress is as high as she's going to get. And you have a number of individuals, Latinos. Now, I will say this with the Latinos, here's where I am a little upset with them. It's funny, particularly the illegal ones, they were asking blacks for their help, but yet they have a lot to say about blacks. It's not fair. And I will say this, you had leaders, although they weren't president, like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton. Okay. I don't have to agree with what they say. You had Bobby Seals, who started the Black Panthers. Could you be in those positions? Most of us couldn't. Because when something goes wrong, the responsibility is on you. And a number of individuals in this country don't understand hierarchy. The president is the highest office in the country. You have a number of individuals, let alone president, who couldn't handle being a mayor or a governor or county executive. It's because you have that title. That title comes with a lot of responsibility and a headache. And if you can't manage your own life as a regular citizen, how are you going to get into politics and go as high as president and try to regulate everybody else's life? You're not going to be able to do it. But you have a lot of people who want to criticize this president, like The View, like CNN. See, it's easy to sit on the sideline and criticize. When you get your ass in a game and you get criticized, you want to shut it down by being offended. And that's what a lot of people are. A lot of people are bomb throwers in this country. They want to criticize until they're criticized. And that was with that black woman on the balloon show. She couldn't take criticism, so she became combative. She became combative on that panel. She got loud. Why? Because her feelings got hurt. You see, she was upset because Guys wouldn't choose her because she's ugly. But again, a number of women call men fat and ugly all the time. Same thing should be directed at women. See, the problem is a number of women wanted all this equality, but equality works both ways. But when the equality doesn't benefit them, oh, they don't want it. This is why I say in America, we live in too much hypocrisy. Now, are you going to agree with everything that the president does? No. Heck, there are mistakes that I've made. And I look back and say, I shouldn't have done that. And I had to go back and correct myself. But you have to be accountable for your actions. Now, with the president, particularly his first term, he had some bad people advising him. And are the people who are surrounding you, are they trustworthy? Can't trust everybody in your cabinet. Look at his first term. Look at his attorney general. Now, I don't know everything about Bondi, but Bondi was on board. Christy Nome, she's going to have another position. You can't say Trump didn't have women in his position. He had pretty powerful women in his position. But the bottom line is, I still have to ask that question to a number of you all. What would you do if you were president? How would you handle an economic downturn? How would you handle conflict? Would you be diplomatic or would you go in guns a-blazing? How would you handle vetoing a bill from the Congress? How would you handle giving a State of the Union? How would you handle the media? How would you handle having Secret Service around you for the rest of your life and your family's life? How would you handle having to be up while a number of us are sleeping 24 hours a day? Because when you're president, the world keeps going. Conflict doesn't stop. And this president's one of the first presidents that actually went on Twitter. The reason why he has Truth Social is because they canceled his account on Twitter. Canceled the president of the United States because they didn't like what he's saying, because they got easily offended. And with these liberals want to be able to have free speech. Now, let me talk about free speech. Now, the president has talked about free speech as well. Everybody really doesn't know what free speech is. Now, free speech, even though it's speech that you don't agree with, is protected speech. But you can't have your speech everywhere. Not in the workplace. Certain things you can't say. Certain things you can't wear. But dealing with the president. What would you do about Homeland Security? Would you defund Homeland Security? What would you do about Iran? What would you do about the economy? You see, here's what you have to understand about being in command. You surround yourself with people who are experts. You don't have to be an expert at everything. See, this president is an expert on business, and he's doing very well on the foreign affairs. He's got to do a little bit better on the domestic affairs. Well, he might not have everything together on domestic affairs. So what is this president doing? He's using his vice president to go around. J.D. Vance has been one of the most active vice presidents I've seen. I mean, if you look at Kamala Harris, She was the border czar. What did she do? Nothing. You look at Tom Homan. In fact, what people don't understand about Tom Homan, wasn't Tom Homan the border czar for Obama? People forget that. People forget that Donald Trump, when it came to black people, he loved black people. Black people loved them. Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton loved them. Oprah loved them. The View loved them. But he became president. That's when everything went downhill. Why? Because he didn't agree with the feminism. Because you have a number of individuals here in the United States, they think they can correct the system by bringing in some type of authoritarian type of system. I mean, these Democrats want illegals. And that's another thing. How could you go against a party as president that doesn't have your back? They're trying to pass the SAVE Act. Now you even got your own party that doesn't want to get on board with you. How are you going to do that? Because sometimes when you're in a position, you're making decisions, you're going to be on an island yourself. But I want to ask everybody, what would you do if you were president? How would you do it? Who would you campaign for during the midterms? Because you're going to have to campaign for some individuals if you want to keep the majority so you can continue to push your agenda through. Because if you have the other party that takes Congress, guess what? Now you're lamed up. And your legacy is gone. And after you get out, that same party is going to want to put you in jail. The issue is that many of us don't want to deal with the truth. We live in the lies, the emotion, the assumption, and the delusion. See, many of us have been told, and guys, I want to say this. Let's stop trying to lie to women just so you'll get in their pants. If they don't look good, let them know, hey, look, you're not my type. You don't look good. Be brash to them because they're brash to you. Of course, they're going to get irate about it. However, throw the feminism card. And this is what guys got to start learning how to do too. And see, Trump will do that. Trump will throw it right back in your face. That's why they don't like Trump. And a lot of guys should learn, hey, look, you got to be brash out here. So women are going to be brash to you. Make them compete. They want equality, make them compete. Show them any mercy. But you have a lot of simps out there, a lot of weak men. Feminism has weakened a lot of men. That's a big problem as well. And when you don't have individuals who understand what's going on in the real world, you get a world that's full of silly children who are offended of everything. Everything. There's an old saying, can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. And you have a number of these Gen Zs coming there talking about my generation, Generation X, being the worst generation. No, my generation came after the previous generation. Yeah, they say we're in Generation Jones, which is, my last name is Jones, which is between 1954 and 1965. That means that's an 11-year period where it's the midpoint of the baby boomers to early Gen Xers. Well, and then you have your exennials that go from 1977 around 1983 because there's a little bit of crossover. But the bottom line is this. My generation, I still grew up with old-fashioned grandmothers that were from the silent generation and the GI age too. some from the lost generation. And many of us were not educated enough to even deal with what's going on with politics. I don't know everything. I mean, you have to look at history, confronting the presence. A number of people need to get Bill O'Reilly's book. Now, I met Bill O'Reilly in East End, Pennsylvania. He knows exactly what's going on. He does the research. Many of us don't do research. Now, we know that the president has to do things. Now, let me just go ahead and share something. Now, and of course, this is going to be in the description of my video. Well, this is what AI says, and I'm not used to using AI everything, but it says if I were president, I would focus on strengthening the country's shared purpose by prioritizing affordable housing. Now, you don't hear anything about affordable housing anymore. They killed that noise. You don't hear about it. Why? Because they're building more housing. Get the illegals out. But you do need accessible health care, quality education. And of course, if I had an agenda, I would focus on infrastructure and of course, environmental protection. Now, this will be hard. You would want to bridge political divides, ensuring that government acts like a champion for all citizens. That's true, but you have all these pundits that don't want that. And your key opportunities and initiatives, you should have economic opportunity. You should always focus on supporting your workers and job creation. You should always want to lower your health care costs and improve your education. You should always invest in conservation efforts so we can have a better environment health-wise. Invest more in our transit systems, bridges, roads, parks. And we need to promote peace in the Middle East. We need to address the global challenges. I'm not going to say anything about climate change. Climate's been changing even before they even talked about climate change. Unity. You're not going to necessarily get unity. You want to get individuals to come to common ground. You want to focus on the needs of citizens. Now, you're not going to satisfy everybody. And you need to be a little open-minded. See, the Democrats talk about compassion, but they're not very compassionate unless you believe in what they believe. That's when they become compassionate. But in essence, they're not very compassionate people. They're the biggest racists, particularly your white liberals out there. And more, when I look at white people, you have a lot of poor white people out there, which I've already known. And you look at what black people have done. Black people had towns, but you see, white people eat their own. If you were a low-class white person, you could not be in the class with the elites. And because the blacks in the past during Jim Crow were actually building their own communities, who destroyed it? A lot of your low-class whites because of jealousy, because even the low-class whites thought that they were better. Now, even the minorities that come here think they're better than blacks. But these individuals never had to go through civil rights. But I will say this, when it comes to blacks in this country, and I will always stand with them for helping others. Never going to sell out that way. Yes, when I agree with white people, it's on certain things. Now, I agree with blacks on certain things. But when it comes to these minorities out here, all these other minorities have ridden the coats of black people. And you had a number of people that were riding the coats on the president until they disagreed with him. And this is what you got to watch when it comes to people. You have a lot of fair weather people out there. But see, if they're fair weather, they weren't for you in the first place. That's what America is missing. No loyalty. You got to be loyal. Now, the Democrats, believe it or not, I don't have to agree with them, but they're loyal to their communism and their socialism. They're loyal to their lying. The media. They're loyal to the Democrats. And they're loyal to their lies as well, like I said. But to be president, many of you couldn't even be president. You can't even spell president. Because many of you don't even understand a budget. Because you can't maintain your own lives. Now, it's funny how individuals could sit there, and even some of these politicians that have been sitting in Congress for a long time, they can criticize the president, but guess what? They've never been president. They've been where they are, fat, dumb, and happy, staying in office because they don't want to get out here in the real world where you got to turn and burn. These are the individuals who lived off the taxpayers. And then you have your number of unappointed and unelected bureaucrats working for the government. And then you have a lot of stupid YouTubers, mainstream media folks, TikTokers, thinking that they know everything about politics when they don't study. I get out and look at the real world. I live here in the real world. I'm going to tell you everything about the real world. The real world is very competitive. And if we're going to make it here in America, you got to turn and burn. And for you individuals who don't like this president, why don't you leave like Rosie O'Donnell did? She went to Ireland, but yet she's still running her mouth. The bottom line is you're over there where you want to be. Why do we want to hear your opinion? See, a number of people want to talk too, just to hear themselves talk, just to think they're actually adding something to the conversation because they have a voice, an opinion, or a number of individuals gives them this artificial power. And that's what's wrong with the feminists. They are looking for supremacy. Well, you're never going to get supremacy because for the most part, you haven't made any sacrifices. Yes, men are disposable because men have had to fight all the wars. Men have had to do all the hazardous types of jobs. And you don't have to like men, but it's men who built this country. It's men who did a lot of the creations. Yeah, I'm not saying women didn't do anything. They may have founded, like Clara Barton founded the Red Cross. Yeah, I was good too. But when it comes to the inventions to help society go, men have done it. And I think this dislike for men or this hatred for men is because you have a number of women who want to be men. They're not happy with being women. And I notice a number of them who run their mouths the most are your unattractive ones. This is why they get involved in education. And they think that it's a good compensation for a relationship. You're ugly, you're ugly. That's the truth. And it happens through genetics. But trying to talk like Lizzo and bring up body positivity when even Lizzo and even Monique lost weight. So that body positivity stuff is not working. It's not working anymore. If you want positivity, the best thing to do is get a better attitude. Stop trying to be something you're not. Being president, he has to wear a lot of hats. But the biggest hat he has to wear is for this country. He has to keep the other leaders at bay from trying to destroy this country. You might not like how he handles things. Even Obama, you didn't have to agree with him. But I don't see anybody else running for president who's talking. I mean, even if Gavin Newsom runs for president, you can run, but guess what? It's just like the Super Bowl. You can get to the Super Bowl like the Tennessee Titans did. It's great you got there, but you didn't win it. Look at the Atlanta Falcons. Great, they got there. They could have won it. They blew a 28-3 lead. But guess what? They lost it. You got to be able to get over the top. This is what I'm talking about, being president. Being a president, you have to understand the laws. You have to understand that you can be impeached and removed. You're not a king. You have to understand that you have to go through Congress. You have to utilize the Supreme Court, their checks and balances. And what individuals don't understand, because they've never been used before until Trump got in power, Trump has had to utilize the National Guard. He hasn't had to use martial law. He's had to use different types of law enforcement. But you have the dumb Democrats out here who really have never been in positions of power themselves. I'm talking about boots on the ground. They don't understand how ICE works, because their voting bloc, their new minority is the illegals. And when you bring illegals into this country, what do illegals do? They bring their culture. And when they bring their culture, they don't assimilate. I mean, do you think I can go to Iran with an American flag? No. You think I could get elected in Iran? No. Or Venezuela? No. The bottom line is, what I'm tired of in this country, I'm tired of individuals not telling the truth. Tired of this Trump derangement syndrome. I'm tired of individuals being easily offended when they're told the truth. Now, can you be a little tactful in some instances? Yes, but the truth is the truth, and individuals are afraid of the truth, and they're being lied to make themselves feel good, and they're actually talking to make themselves sound educated, even when they are not educated. And just because you have education, it doesn't mean that you are intelligent. You can sound intelligent, and you can talk loud, but guess what? You still aren't saying anything. So the bottom line is, you have all these individuals on the View with all, everybody has an opinion, but no solution. Or they think they have a solution. But the bottom line is, they can't deal with truth. That's where they're losing. And they're going to continue to lose. The problem is, we have too many individuals who are brainwashed. You have a number of women who are brainwashed, a number of your Gen Zs are brainwashed, Gen Xers are brainwashed, baby boomers are brainwashed. That's the problem in this country. Compassion is going into the wrong people. We have compassion for people who shouldn't be here. I mean, we voted for the removal of illegals, but we got that Obama had children in cages. He deported more illegals than what Trump did. Gas prices were high when Biden was in office. Yes, did Biden come in with COVID? Yes. But it's funny how COVID immediately went away, too. The bottom line, you're a president, You got to deal with catastrophes. You got to deal with hurricanes, tornadoes. That's what you have to deal with when you're president. Now the question is, got to ask this one more time. Can you deal with truth? Can you deal with responsibility? Can you handle power, real power? And see, that power can't be administered by your emotions. It has to be constrained because you're going to have to listen to your cabinet members. That's why you surround yourself with people who understand your agenda. And if they don't have your agenda as a president, you get rid of them because they're going to affect your legacy, your vision. But the bottom line is this: in the end, what would you do as president? Leave your answer in my comment section, because the only thing I can tell you is keep striving for the truth, whether it offends people or whether it doesn't. The truth is always going to set you free. And that's my commentary for this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. And if you are looking for some STEM content, check out my second channel, the QCIS channel. On that channel, I give you a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. Now, here's where you can find me. 401 Talk Zone radio show. You can find me right here on YouTube. You can find me right here on X, formerly Twitter. You can also find me on Rumble and Truth Social. And for the QCIS channel, you can find me on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, and of course, LinkedIn. And not to be offensive, or I don't want anybody to be jealous. But if you are offended, then you need to change what's going on in your life. Because I'm going to say this, and if you're jealous as well, don't be, because you need to be blessed with what you have. Don't worry about what you don't have. Always know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. And if it doesn't apply, let it fly. But if the shoe fits, you wear it. And if you don't like the shoe, just change it. Once again, thank you for listening to this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. I want you all to have a wonderful and gracious evening. God bless you. I'm out.